Let's go, DeMeco Ryans, the head coach of the Houston Texans. Plenty to get into on the big news of the day. We will always, as Texans fans, remember the final day of January in 2023 as the day DeMeco Ryans came home and the Houston Texans started a brand new era for this organization. Let's go. Let's go. I want to hear in the comments how excited you guys are. We're going to talk about DeMeco Ryans, how fantastic it is that it is a done deal. Some of the fun news that came out over the course of the day after the hiring about some last-ditch efforts from a team up north that tried to get DeMeco Ryans. We got plenty to celebrate. We got plenty to talk about. And man, it feels good to follow the Houston Texans right now. It feels good to talk about the Houston Texans right now. It feels good to be a Houston Texans fan now. And DeMeco Ryans is one of the main reasons. Let's do this. Oh, I'm pumped. We were on the air on the Wheelhouse on ESPN 97.5 when it happened. Sean Payton had just been hired by the Denver Broncos. And the next thing you know, Brooks Cabina from the Houston Chronicle, DeMeco Ryans, the next head coach of the Houston Texans. Bing, bang, boom. No wasting time. Got the I's dotted, got the T's crossed, got the ink drying. DeMeco Ryans is home. Great job by Brooks Cabina to get that story. Really good job by him. That's a fantastic job. While the national folks were worried about what exactly was going down with Sean Payton, Brooks swooped in there and got us here in Houston that story. And then, of course, the Ian Rappaports, the Adam Schefters of the world following up. I'm pumped, guys. I'm pumped. I hope that y'all are as pumped as I am. Touch of Trent looks like he's pumped. Brandon, he's pumped. Language, Brandon. Language. What if the kids accidentally watch this? Max, new era begins, man. It does. It does. Eddie, appreciate it. The H-Town's getting popular. I can't do the H-Town because it looks like hook 'em horns, and I'm not a Longhorn. Maybe if I get it in enough, it looks like an H. It looks like the H-Town. If I get it pushed back enough, I can't do the hook 'em horns. I went to Texas Tech, but, you know, man, I sure love that picture of Kyle and Hannah and Nick Casario and DeMeco throwing up the H, though, man. That looked good. That was fun, man. Hefe, DeMeco's home. Let's go. It's about to be fire. David, you're right about that. Let's get some Cliff and Anthony Lynn in here. We'll talk about OCs. Vera, yep. Haters still saying we won't win nothing. That's fine. Let them talk. They didn't know what was going on in Houston. They didn't believe the Houston Texans were going to be able to get the top coordinator candidate in this round. Because that's what happened, folks. The top coordinator candidate in this coaching cycle, the top coordinator candidate ended up with the Houston Texans. That's what DeMeco Ryans was when this search started. He was the top coordinator candidate in this coaching search. The top guy a year ago from a coordinator candidate perspective, Brian Daboll, who'd been in the coaching cycle twice at that point, never gave you a sniff. Never gave you a sniff. The top candidate last cycle, who wasn't Brian Daboll, Kevin O'Connell, it was kind of a courtesy interview. KOC looked like he was headed to the Vikings no matter what. The top coordinator candidate picked the Houston Texans. That means that the Houston Texans, who have been a disaster of an organization, have been one of the worst-run franchises in Houston sports history, have been one of the worst-run franchises in all of sports the past couple of years. The Houston Texans finished their season and went to work in creating an opportunity and creating a job that was an attractive job, a very attractive job for the top candidates, to the point where top candidates like DeMeco Ryans turned down other opportunities. Didn't even want to listen to Carolina. Didn't even want to listen to the Colts and the Cardinals. Turned down the Denver Broncos. And if you believe Ian Rappaport, Did that twice. The Texans fired Lovie Smith the same day he cost them the number 1 overall pick and finished a terribly disappointing season. And then they went to work in trying to change the image and the conversation around this organization to create an opportunity that the best candidate might want them. That the best candidate might want them, and they might want the best candidate, and they might be able to get that guy. And then they went through the process, and they talked to 8 different coaches, and nobody ever told them no. Everybody wanted to talk to the Texans. Everybody else got an interview turned down or got turned down at some point. Texans never got turned down. 8 for 8 on the interviews. That is a fantastic job by the Houston Texans. It's a great job to transform in a short amount of time the perception of your organization. And in a short amount of time, do enough, put together enough of a presentation, a conversation about your team that the top coordinator candidate was intrigued, told other teams no, and decided to be your head coach. I'm pumped. I'm pumped. You should be pumped too. We got a lot to get to, including your comments. I will do a better job with the comments today. I won't get too far behind on these comments. Keep them coming. Keep them firing. DeMeco Ryans, welcome home. Man, I love what the Texans social team's done today. That graphic that they put up with DeMeco, man, I called it beautiful on Twitter. It's beautiful. I wish I didn't want to steal it and put it as a little thumbnail for this video. I thought about it. I thought about it. It's pretty. I might need to get that made a poster. Okay? That was great. DeMeco Ryans' coach sounds like new unis will bring back the baby blues. Players are hyped as hell. Great day. Absolutely a great day. Absolutely a great day. Hold on, man. Mama Stutes is calling. Got to make sure it's not an emergency. Mama Stutes calling. Got to make sure it's not an emergency here. Make sure she doesn't need something. Because if she does, well, YouTube's over. We'll get it going again at like 1 o'clock in the morning. But if she's good, we're going to keep rolling. Miko's back. Uniform change coming a year from now. Quarterback on the way. Woo! Time to hit the ground running and get back to winning. That's the next step, man. You got to put together this organization in a way that you're creating a constant winner. I don't want to accidentally win the AFC South and then drop back to the bottom. I want this team to build, and get themselves into a situation where they can consistently win the AFC South, build that, put it together, and then consistently compete in the AFC. And one day, DeMeco Ryans is going to have this team playing in the AFC Championship. That's what I want. That's what the goal is. And that's why DeMeco's got a 6-year contract. And as somebody said to me, man, 6 years sure sounds like an awful long amount of time. I said, yeah, but if he coaches here for 26, is going to feel like it's the shortest amount of time ever. Man, I want this team to be winning again. I want to be playing winning football. I want them in the short term to be playing competitive football. I want them to tackle well. I want them to play better defense. I want the offense to be useful. What's crazy is we aren't winning. We're already catching hate. Yeah, people are concerned about the Houston Texans because they nailed this coaching hire. David, let's go, Big Stoots. Hey, I don't know if I got it like that. I don't have the peaks. I work out a little bit. I ain't got it like that, though. I got it. Al, man, I'm all the way back in. Hey, that's a fun part of DeMeco Ryans showing back up. It's one of the bonuses. Look, if Mike Kafka was the coach, if Shane Steichen was the coach, and if Jonathan Gannon was the coach, you might have some people interested-ish. Might have some cursory interest in this team. I heard from a guy today that I went to high school with that I haven't talked to since I graduated. He was a year behind me. So, closer to 20 years than that. Like, it's been a long time since I talked to this guy. And he hit me up on Facebook. He said, can't believe they got DeMeco. How'd I listen to your show? I said, oh, well, the show's on right now, but if you want to watch the YouTube later, that's going to happen too. He goes, I'm pumped about the Texans again. And there was good reason to be away from this franchise. There was good reason as this organization traded away DeAndre Hopkins, as this organization saw J.J. Watt leave, as this organization seemingly messed up the Deshaun Watson situation. There was reason to be out on this organization. 2 really bad coaching searches with 2 really bad coaching hires. I understand it. But like Arthur's saying right here, okay to get the Texans gear out again? Now, I hope you never put it away, but it's definitely time to get it out again. And if you got a 59 jersey that says Ryans on the back, crack that sucker out. That's a long time ago he played. Some of us might have put on a few pounds. It may not fit like it used to, but if it still fits, rock it. If it still fits, rock it, man. DeMeco Day. DeMeco Day, indeed. Plenty to talk about. We'll get to your comments here as well. Somebody mentioned the defense. I'm really excited for this defense, man. He's a defensive-minded coach. You don't hire schemes. That's not why you hire guys. You don't hire a guy because of the scheme. You hire a guy because you believe he's a good coach. He's a leader. He's going to coach guys well. He's going to hire good people on his staff that are going to coach the team up. He's going to manage the game well. You don't hire because of scheme. But hearing former Texans talk, and Wade Smith talked about this with Landry Locker. Wade Smith talked about it, and he said, look, you're about to have a tough, well-coached defense. You're about to have a bunch of guys that tackle well. You're about to have a bunch of guys that play hard on defense. You're about to have the days of missed tackles and safeties leading the league in missed tackles. And I'm paraphrasing a little bit. Those are gone. Because if you're not thumping, you're not hitting, you're not playing hard, DeMeco's not rocking with you. I love that, man. This defense has got to get better. This offense has got to get better. You're going to inject some talent into this offense, though. And the defense is going to get some talent, too. But it's got to get better from a basics standpoint. DeMeco feels like the type of guy that's going to bring that to the table. By the way, I mentioned Landry Locker. He had a live earlier today. Check out Landry's YouTube channel. Subscribe to him. I would appreciate a subscribe and a thumbs up below. We passed the 1,000 mark last night. We'll get to see more and more people. We'll get in the algorithm. We'll get some more Texans fans and maybe some haters in the channel a little bit. We'll talk some more. We'll have some more fun here on the channel. Robert. Why did I say Robert weird? Robert. Wild Some Media said Miko wouldn't want this job. Texans was his dream job. Man, certainly feels that way. I never believed that DeMeco would just say no, no thanks, no chance. Didn't believe that. And that turned out to not be the case. He listened, was blown away, turned the Broncos down, and found himself back home. Finally listening to the fans. Man, I'm not saying that you should always listen to the fans. You shouldn't always listen to the fans. But it felt like the fans had no say for a good portion of Bill O'Brien's time and then shortly after Bill O'Brien. It felt like the fans had no say in the way this organization went. Fans didn't want to trade DeAndre Hopkins, and if they did, they didn't want a paltry second-round pick and Brandon Cooks to end up as the replacement situation. Hell no. They wanted a first like Stephon Diggs went for weeks later. You don't always listen to the fans, but it felt like the fans were ignored for a long time. Moses Torres, now I'll spend some money on a game. Come on, those tickets will still be cheap initially. They'll still be cheap initially, but you can get in there, man. You can get in there. We had somebody call the show today and say, I live out of town. I will be there for opening day 2023 because DeMeco's going to be the coach. That's somebody who probably has to jump through hoops to watch the Texans and maybe on some Sundays turned them off. And they're calling the radio show from out of town and saying, I'll be there opening day because I got to be in the building for DeMeco Ryans, making his head coaching debut for the Houston Texans. That's the type of power this guy brings to the table, the familiarity. Like, again, Kafka's a nice coach. Gannon might be a nice coach. And Steichen might be a nice coach. And those guys would have gotten some excitement associated with them. But to have everybody freaking out, because we're freaking out, man. I'm freaking out. I'm pumped. Excited to talk about this team, to cover this team. I'm excited about the hope that DeMeco Ryans brings. And it's something I talked about with Gary Kubiak when people got excited when Gary got hired here. Gary's a Houstonian, went to high school there, played college football in the state of Texas, had a great resume, talked like us, walked like us, knew the best places in town to get Tex-Mex. Man, that's DeMeco. Talks like us, walks like us, knows the best places in town to get Tex-Mex. Fantastic resume. Turned down other jobs, so he was ready when this one popped up. Exciting hire in DeMeco Ryans. New unis, new coach. New quarterback on the way, beginning of the Cal era. If this works, man, the way Cal McNair's been operating, the way he's been acting, I'm calling it cool Cal. Because Cal wasn't always cool. Cal's cool now. The cool Cal era might have started today, January 31st, 2023. Sure hope so. Sure hope so. Vincent, what's up, man? Out online. 6 years we'll have a ring for sure. Ooh, don't threaten me with a good time. Sure would like that. Sure would like that. I was in the middle of the video, y'all talking about Gary. That's the best thing, really. Hey, we'll talk about Gary Kubiak here in a minute. We'll talk about some of this staff that's going to show up here. Shopped at the top. Did not disappoint, man. They went window shopping, and they spent big bucks, and they committed. I love that about this coaching hire. I love that Cal McNair, Hannah McNair, ownership group, the front office led by Nick Casario. I love that they all got on the same page and made this big commitment to DeMeco Ryans. It's a big, fun commitment. Bengals wide receiver coach Troy Walters for the OC job from the Bengals. Yeah, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about Troy. We'll talk about some of the other guys here in just a minute. Don't let me forget about that. I'm going to star that so we can come back to it. Hopefully, if I remember to come back to the starred ones. I'm going to get me a DeMeco jersey. I bet you NFL Shop's going to have a lot of 59 Ryans jerseys. It's rare to be able to wear, like, if you got a Frank Reich jersey and you're wearing it to a Panthers game, cool. Frank wasn't like that awesome for the Panthers. Like, he was fine. He wasn't as good at quarterback for the Panthers as DeMeco was for the Texans at linebacker. So, yeah, get you a Ryans 59 jersey. I wonder if Kenyon Green's going to change his jersey. He tweeted about it today. Kenyon Green, OG 59. Yeah, he's back. He's back. What's crazy, the Broncos wanted DeMeco, had to settle on Sean Payton, giving a first and a third-round pick for him. All right, let's talk about this one. Let's talk about Ian Rappaport's report about the Broncos coming back and taking another swing at DeMeco Ryans. Excuse me while I take off my slippers because it's getting hot in here because we're excited. We're having some fun here on the YouTube today. So I got to take the slippers on. My feet are getting hot. Ian Rappaport tweets that earlier today, before the Texans announced DeMeco Ryans, the Broncos came back and took another swing at DeMeco Ryans. And DeMeco still picked the Houston Texans. That's incredible. That is a great job by DeMeco Ryans to see through sort of the potential issues that Denver may have for him. That's a great job by the Texans, making this an attractive enough job that DeMeco didn't want to jump ship. And I understand why the Broncos swung back around. I really do. Because it's just money to them. If they can money whip DeMeco Ryans and get him here, that's a much better situation than Sean Payton coaching your team and having to give up all those draft picks for him and spending $20, $25 million maybe for Sean Payton. That's a better situation getting DeMeco. And they clearly thought highly of DeMeco. Heck, if you listen to the Denver Broncos media and some of the national folks, Denver thought they were getting DeMeco last week. But they're not getting him. They're not getting DeMeco. I love that the Broncos tried twice and didn't get him. I love that. It's very impressive that this job was put together in such a manner that it impressed DeMeco Ryans for him to say yes, and then it impressed him enough for the Texans to be able to rebuff what the Broncos were offering. Because if you want to win now, the Broncos are the better situation. It's not easy to win, but if you want to win now, the Broncos are the better situation than the Houston Texans. But if you want to build something long-lasting, that's the Texans. And that's what DeMeco basically said. And David, you got a point here. I think the flip over to having the Broncos miss on DeMeco Ryans helps the Texans' perception, helps the perception of this organization. Mike Florio, who joins my radio show every week, joins the radio show I'm on with Jake Asman and Brad Kellner. Those guys kill me if they heard me say my radio show. He joins every week at 5:30 on Wednesday. We're going to ask Mike about the dysfunctional Texans landing DeMeco Ryans. Not so dysfunctional anymore. What's the draft strategy? Star it. We'll come back to it. All right, let me get to the recent comments. I don't want to leave anybody out. I don't want somebody to jump in here and miss out. Steven, shop at the top at Carlos Correa at the Dior store. Woo! The Dior of defense, Carlos Correa. The Dior of defensive coordinators, DeMeco Ryans. I love it. I love it. All right, so let's talk about these offensive coordinators. Let's talk about DeMeco's staff a little bit here and some of these names. So the name that was requested earlier today, and Sean brought it up here, is Bengals wide receiver coach Troy Walters. Now, Troy Walters has coached for the Bengals for 3 years. He's been in the NFL for 3 years. And before that, Walters was a college football coach. He played at Stanford and then was a 5th-round pick by the Vikings and played in the NFL for about 8 seasons. The Vikings, the Colts, the Cardinals, and the Lions. And then was a college coach. Got started at Indiana State, who I didn't even know had a football program. Was in college until 2020 when the Bengals had him as the assistant wide receivers coach. And then in 2021 and 2022, he was the wide receivers coach for this team. This guy was an awesome wide receiver. He won the Bolitnikoff Award in college. Okay, he was the offensive player of the year in the Pac-12, and he was a consensus All-American. How this guy went in the 5th round, I don't know. Again, didn't have a great career in college. In the pros, but played for a while, got some experience, and has been coaching since. He was born in Indiana, but he went to college. He went to high school in College Station. And so I think that's a great aspect. He's not that far away. College Station is where he went to college, A&M Consolidated, and then went to Stanford. How many people go from College Station to Stanford? This guy's smart, man. This guy's smart. Troy Walters, interesting name. I'll be interested to see about Troy Walters and what they bring to the table. Just reported Texans interview request of Bobby Slowick from the 49ers. All right. I'm live here, so it's tough for me to see those as they pop up. I'll take you guys at your word, even though I'm quickly looking for the tweet. Slowick is a really interesting guy. Here's why Slowick is so interesting to me. He's currently on the 49ers staff. He's the pass game coordinator. So the coordinator, either pass game or run game coordinator, is usually the predecessor job to ending up as the offensive coordinator for Kyle Shanahan. Now, Shanahan had no offensive coordinator this year. But in 2020, Mike McDaniel was the run game coordinator. And then in 2021, he was the offensive coordinator. So it's worth thinking that Bobby Slowick might have been on his way to being Kyle Shanahan's offensive coordinator. And if he is on his way to being Kyle Shanahan's offensive coordinator, it's going to be an interesting conversation about sticking around in San Francisco, especially if they believe they can get Tom Brady, or they believe that Brock Purdy is going to be healthy enough by the time the regular season gets going, or they like Trey Lance. It's a worthwhile conversation, even though you won't call plays, to be sticking around with that offense. But the opportunity to call plays, be the top offensive mind in the building in Houston, that's really interesting too. And here's what you get to do in Houston. You get to call the plays, get to coach up a quarterback in the draft. And if you're good for 2 years, you find yourself with a head coach job. And by the way, guys, we want guys hired away. We want guys hired away from an offensive coordinator spot, because that means they've been badass. I mean, they don't hire crappy coordinators away to be head coaches. We want guys like Bobby Slowick to come over here, coach for 2 years, and get hired away as be a head coach. That means they did an awesome job, guys. That's what we want. That's what you want. Y'all got to watch some videos on Walters, like an older wide receiver version of DeMeco. Okay. They can do a little bit more research on Walters. Troy Walters is an interesting name. Slowick is the guy on the 49ers that I would want if they're going to hire someone from the 49ers. If it has to be somebody that DeMeco's familiar with at his job, I'd rather be Slowick. Young guy, background in defense. Slowick coached defense when he got into the league at Washington. Switched over to offense in San Francisco. So Slowick's got a unique background to him. And he's a young guy. I like that. Anthony Lynn is another name that you're going to hear a lot. Anthony Lynn is the running backs coach an assistant head coach in San Francisco for the 49ers right now. You'll remember Anthony Lynn most famously for his time as the head coach of the LA Chargers when he was fired and they hired Brandon Staley. Anthony Lynn, after he was fired by the Chargers, was the offensive coordinator for Dan Campbell and the Detroit Lions in Detroit. Before the end of the year, Lynn had his offensive coordinator duties stripped from him. He stopped calling plays. Dan Campbell called the plays. It didn't go well for Dan Campbell. And then Anthony Lynn was fired at the end of the year. So then he was back with San Francisco as the assistant head coach. He was with San Francisco as the assistant head coach and running backs coach. Anthony Lynn's an all-world human being. That guy, you listen to him talk, you listen to some of the stories, listen to some of the things that have happened in his life, all-world human being. I don't want him to be the offensive coordinator. I'm worried about the failure in Detroit. Now, a guy can learn from that failure. But I don't want him to be the offensive coordinator. I prefer a young guy. And I would be happy to have Anthony Lynn on the staff for DeMeco Ryans. I just don't want him to be the offensive coordinator. Make him the assistant head coach and pass game coordinator, or assistant head coach and run game coordinator, or running backs coach. Just shoot. He wants to be the running backs coach, make him the running backs coach. I just don't want Anthony Lynn to be the offensive coordinator. It may end up that way, and I'll have to give Anthony Lynn a chance and the benefit of the doubt. I just don't – he's not as exciting to me as some of the other guys that you could hire as an offensive coordinator. We also get 2 second-round picks for the Rooney Rule. If your coordinator or front office guy gets hired away and they are a minority, you'll get picks. Slowick's a white guy, though. Bobby Slowick's a little white guy. So no Rooney Rule compensation picks there. Now, Walters has a couple of good years and gets hired as a head coach, and talk about some draft pick compensation. Neil, how much it would cost to get Sean first, second round, and they received Sean in third round pick? Yeah, it was expensive. It was expensive for them. We said you got to watch some videos. All right, Kingsbury is a fun name. Ryan brings him up. That's my dream name. We were talking about it today on the show. My dream name is Cliff Kingsbury for a variety of reasons. 1, former head coach. 2, coached a little quarterback. That's what Bryce Young might be in the NFL for the Texans. And I think those 2 things, combined with the fact that he's got great offensive knowledge, makes Cliff Kingsbury a super interesting candidate. Now, everybody's going to want a shot at Cliff Kingsbury, including Nick Saban down there in Tuscaloosa running his offense. And Cliff doesn't have to work this year. He's got a big fat contract that he can just sit out and chill and hang out in Thailand for a year. He doesn't have to work this year. But if he wants to get back in, man, coaching up the number 2 overall pick, that's a quarterback, and just coaching the offense, not having to worry about all the BS that comes being a head coach that Cliff didn't do well at, it certainly would be an attractive conversation. Now, Brandon, Cliff's the most interesting of a splash. That Shanahan tree is hard to go away from, especially since they have the connection. Absolutely. Absolutely. I feel bad for DeMeco. I started watching football since 2005. The Texans have sucked every year no matter what. Not true. Not true. 2011 and 2012, they were good. And if Matt Schaub's leg doesn't explode in 2011, they'd go play for the AFC Championship and maybe go play for the Super Bowl. That's a fact, Jack. I mean, it might be my opinion, but it's a fact, Jack. Texas interest 49ers secondary coach, former Lions defensive coordinator Corey Undon, coordinator Aaron Wilson. Hey, adding guys to the defensive staff. Look, DeMeco's going to set the tone. I trust him to hire a bunch of defensive guys. I'm worried about the offensive guys. I'm worried about putting a good offense on the field, putting a good offensive game plan. DeMeco can help you with the defense. Now he can help with the offense too. Like, this guy's clearly a high-level guy. This guy's clearly very smart. In Philadelphia, they would install 2 defenses on weeks where DeMeco was injured and hurt, and they weren't sure he was going to play. They'd install a complicated one that DeMeco could help explain as it was happening, and they'd install a little bit more simple one that they could run if DeMeco couldn't play that week. And everybody always wanted the complicated one because DeMeco would help him. The guy clearly knows offense. There was a 49ers story where he would, the headsets they wear, get the green dot on the helmet. The coaches can talk to the players. Well, before the headset would cut off, DeMeco would be like, it's going to be this play. And most of the time, the player said, And DeMeco called the play exactly what it was going to be. Seeing the formation and the personnel, he knew what play it was going to be. So DeMeco can help you a little bit with offense, help set the tone, but he's not calling plays. He's not walking over there and saying, "Oh, we'll run this or run that." You got to trust your guy that you hire. You got to trust your guy that you hire to run the offense. You can't be tampering, tangling up with him too much. You got to trust him. Brandon, definitely a no for Lynn as OC. Tyler, Slowick seems like he called an awesome game plan. He does not look like he could fire up a team, though. That's what DeMeco's for, baby. I want a nerd at OC. You think Mike McDaniel's getting folks fired up when he was the OC? Now, his personality, his calm and collected and cool personality, that might get you ready for a game, too. I want a nerd calling the offense. Okay? DeMeco's there to get everybody pumped also. Under DeMeco, I don't think you have any problem getting people pumped. I don't think anybody's going to have a problem with DeMeco. Owl Online. Does DeMeco make it more attractive to people to sign with us in free agency? No. Really doesn't. The way you get guys in free agency is you pay guys. That's the simple fact of it. You pay guys. You pay more than everybody else. That's how you end up with guys in free agency. And you pay a bad team tax sometimes when you're a bad team. You're a bad team right now. You might pay a little bit of bad team tax. Everything's expensive in free agency, though. When's the last time somebody got a bargain on a really good player in free agency? It just doesn't happen that much. It just doesn't happen. You get lucky sometimes. Old guys got stuff left in the tank a little bit more than what you think. That's been Justin Houston for a couple of years, but for the most part, you don't get any bargains in free agency. You overpay in free agency. That's just the cost of doing business. Daniel Torres. What about Joe Brady? Joe Brady's currently the quarterback's coach for the Buffalo Bills. And Brady's an interesting name, not for his NFL success, but Joe Brady was the offensive coordinator and the play caller when the LSU won the national championship. And Joe Burrow and Terrace Marshall and Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Brady was the coach there. Called all those plays for him, got him going, coached him up really well. Didn't have a lot of success in the NFL. Joe Brady, I believe, is going to end up on the staff of Sean Payton. He's going to end up on the staff of Sean Payton. That's what I believe. Sean Payton was the guy that hired him in the NFL. Took him around LSU, and that's how LSU knew who Joe Brady was. Carlos Garcia. I believe in any top 4 QBs, Young, Levis, Stroud, AR, fit into Slovak offense, interact and see how the QB carousel lands in free agency. I get the Texans chance to go with defense first and QB at 12. I like the 2 QBs the most. That's what I like the most. I like Stroud and Young at the top the most. I'd like one of those guys with the first 2 picks. I have not found a good reason to be swayed off of that yet. I don't want a free agent quarterback. They're too expensive. And they're too expensive, and I don't believe that those guys are going to pick you. Brady gets too much credit. The LSU roster, along with Steve Ensminger, helped a lot, as well as Joe Brady. Look, I don't want to give him too much credit. I don't want to give him not enough credit either. I mean, they were a dumpster fire on offense before he got there. He was there. It was awesome. It didn't look good in Carolina, but they didn't have a lot to work with in Carolina. So, Joe, hit the like button. 42 with 170 watching. Hey, yeah, I appreciate y'all, man. We have so much fun on these. We're going to do a lot of fun stuff on this channel when it comes to Texans stuff, when it comes to drafts, free agency, and stuff like that. And your likes and your subscribes down below, and they help this channel a lot. We have a lot of fun with this channel. Somebody earlier said you got to go live a little bit more. Man, we're trying, baby. We're trying. I like this late night stuff. Man, who knew there were 200 people at 11:04 on a Tuesday and want to talk about the Texans? I didn't know that before I started doing these. We're having a blast. Having a couple of brews, man. I don't usually drink on the weekdays, but DeMeco got me partying a little bit. DeMeco got me excited. Oh, look who it is. It's Brad Kellner, the host of the Wheelhouse, ESPN 97.5, 92.5, weekdays 3 p.m. to 7 p.m., ESPN 97.5 app, twitch.com/ESPN 975. He says, that's a quality beer that you're drinking. Brad's favorite beer is Altstat beer. He'll tell you there's no impurities and no regrets. You know what there's no impurities and no regrets on right now? DeMeco Ryans hiring. How about that? About that, I'm actually switching between two different beverages from the fine folks at Altstat. BK will tell you how to get those Altstats. Tell the folks in the comments, BK, where they can find the Altstats. They're all around. Go to grocery stores. They're at the specs. The specs. Ooh. He's a slime ball. Definitely not huge. My future to that wagon. Got some Philly just flashed this year. Is he talking about Joe Brady? Dennis? You talking about Joe Brady? He brought up Philly. How about a fun Philly name for you for the offensive coordinator spot? How about Brian Johnson? Brian Johnson, who is the quarterback's coach for the Philadelphia Eagles. And there are going to be a lot of people. There are going to be a lot of people that want to hire Brian Johnson to be their offensive coordinator. Johnson played football at Utah, played his high school football in Baytown, and started in the college ranks, was at UH in 2017, was the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach at Florida in 2020. And why is that significant? Why would I even, okay, Cody, why are you bringing that one up? What's so important about that? In 2020, Kyle Trask threw for 43 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, and over 4,000 yards, and was in the Heisman Trophy candidacy conversation for a good portion of that year. Trask had an amazing year. He's not that quarterback. Johnson coached him up and then has been in Philadelphia since then. Brian Johnson is, man, he's a fun candidate. That's a fun candidate to think about. Everybody's going to want Brian Johnson. And if Shane Steichen leaves, why would Brian Johnson leave? Brian Johnson can just take over Shane Steichen's role as the OC. Maybe he calls the plays, maybe he doesn't. But that's an interesting and fun name, Brian Johnson, to think about. All right, Brandon brings it up. Clint as OC and Gary in a management role. He's talking about the Kubiaks, which, by the way, Clint starts with a K. Clint Kubiak, Gary Kubiak. I have no idea if Gary Kubiak is going to coach again. I don't believe he will. But he's 61 years old. He'll turn 62 during the season. Andy Reid's in his mid-60s. Pete Carroll's in his 70s. Bill Belichick's in his 70s. Now, Gary's had some health problems in the past, so I don't know if he wants to get back into coaching. But if Gary Kubiak is interested, I'd be very interested in sort of a offensive coordinator with an OC in waiting setup with maybe one of his kids. I don't know if that's something you want to do. I don't know if that's something DeMeco Ryans wants to do. I'd pick Gary Kubiak's brain, though, and if he wants to have sort of that senior offensive assistant role where he shows up 2-3 times a week to help out the offense, he can do a lot worse than Gary Kubiak popping his head in the room and let you know a little bit about offense. Let's go to the draft. Cody, what route are we taking? Does it change with DeMeco? No, it doesn't. DeMeco should not know who he wants to draft right now. That's not something that should be the case right now for DeMeco Ryans. But I do wonder if the coaching search was held with the idea that a quarterback is absolutely being taken. The quarterback is absolutely being taken with the number 2 overall pick. That's how I would have run the search. Everybody needs to know we're taking a QB. So figure out which one of these guys you like. DeMeco, yes. DeMeco Ryans coached defense. He coached the defensive player of the year this year in Nick Bosa. He's got some other studs on defense. Will Anderson is attractive. Jalen Carter is attractive. You know what DeMeco Ryans' team did when they had Nick Bosa and Fred Warner, some of these other ass kickers on defense? You know what they did? They went and traded for a quarterback. They traded up to go get Trey Lance and draft Trey Lance. And that is something to keep in mind, that DeMeco Ryans was in the building with one of the best offensive minds in all of football, and watch that guy get desperate for a quarterback upgrade. DeMeco didn't even have to trade up for his. He can select one at 2. he could select one at 2. So it's fun, man. I don't think the trade. I don't think I don't think this is happening. I think a quarterback is happening at 2. I really do. Who'd be our first defensive player drafted this year? Well, if you're at 12 and Miles Murphy, the defensive end from Clemson's there, he's not going to be there. But if he is there, run the card up. Run the card up, man. I know you got 12 picks, so moving back's kind of a weird deal unless you're getting picks in the future. But if a quarterback's sitting there at 12 after the Texans have already picked one and somebody wants to come up for, say, Anthony Richardson or Will Levis, and moving back a little bit and then maybe taking a linebacker or something that's not as, well thought of, or maybe a riskier defensive end, maybe that's something you could do. Ryan mentions this. Hey, BK, missed you on the show today. How you feel? BK a little under the weather today on the show. We missed him a lot. I hope he's back tomorrow. I can't wait to hear BK talk about this because he's dropped some knowledge throughout this coaching search. He's dropped some wisdom. So when BK gets on this, it's going to be fun. By the way, BK's got a YouTube channel too. You can subscribe to that one as well. I'm worried about Bryce being weaker and skinnier and quarterbacks that get hurt more often, for example. Daniel, Will Levis was hurt more this year than Bryce Young was, and Will Levis is the prototype. Will Levis is the guy that people call the prototype this year, and he was hurt more than Bryce Young was this year. The big guys get hurt too. I mean, let's be real. The big guys get hurt too. How many games did Kyler Murray miss via injury? A few, certainly. Kyler's out now because of a non-contact injury. That can happen to anybody. These little guys, Drew Brees basically played every game every year, and he was a tiny guy compared to some of those other quarterbacks. DGMT6, I'm sorry there was no dysfunction. My bad. Cal's cooking. Let's go. Hello from Monterrey, Mexico. Hold on. We're international? We're international? We're in Mexico? Hell yeah, man. Hell yeah. Yeah, folks wanted the Texans to fail. They didn't. Sean says, my dream prediction, I hope the Colts fall in love with Levis trading up to 1 and we get draft Young at 2. I hope they do that with Jeff Saturday as the head coach. Wouldn't that be fun? Jeff Saturday is the head coach, and they trade up for Will Levis and the Texans get Bryce Young. Wouldn't that be fun? DeMeco will get the best out of what we got and more. Definitely want a QB, but DeMeco wants a defensive guy also, at least a 12 wonder. DeMeco and Nick and Ryans had that combo. You got to know how the relationship works. Look, again, it behooves Nick Caserio and DeMeco Ryans to work together and to make this work because DeMeco doesn't want to have a new general manager come in there and have a little bit more say in things than he does. Nick Caserio doesn't want to lose his job. This is the handpicked. Look how excited everybody is. You want to disagree with that guy on a regular basis? And look, we know Nick Caserio can work with coaches. Look at the Christian Harris selection last year. That felt like something Lovie Smith desperately wanted, and Nick Caserio made it happen in the draft. They even traded up for him. So I don't believe there's going to be some sort of unworkable relationship between those two sides in DeMeco and Nick Caserio. I don't believe that at all. In fact, I think they're going to get along great. And I think it's awesome that they come from two different schools because they challenge each other, man. Like I want people to hold people accountable in business. Like the best businesses have people that can hold people accountable. I'm going to sound like a total dweeb when I say this, and I make fun of Nick Caserio for this sometimes, but this is actually a fun aspect. I read a book one time about Netflix and how their culture and how they work their business culture. And one of their big things is anybody can challenge anybody on their work and on if they're working the right way. And anybody can recommend ideas to anybody. So they give the example of it's your first day on work and the CEO is doing or saying something wrong. Challenge the CEO even though it's your first day at work. It's not quite that because DeMeco and Nick are on basically level playing ground. But I want those two guys to collaborate. I want those two guys to work together and challenge each other and push each other. Okay? Tyler, don't do this. Don't do this. Just because he went to Stanford doesn't mean he cares about Davis Mills. Get out of here. Moses, Andre Johnson's wide receiver coach. I don't think so. I don't think Andre wants to coach. I think he got a little taste of it. Being around coaching a couple of years ago. I don't think he wants to coach. I do believe Andre wants to be around the organization. I do believe he wants to be around the organization. And so I'm excited to see some of the players that make their way back into the regularity of this organization. Guys like Andre Johnson being there a lot more. Man, I was talking to Landry Locker about this the other night. If Arian Foster comes back around, Arian's one of the most entertaining dudes that have come through this locker room, come through this organization. And if Arian Foster cares about football again and is back around the Texans and cares about the Texans on a week-in, week-out basis and talks about the Texans, that's going to be fun. Oh, breaking news. BK should be back tomorrow. Love seeing it. Love seeing it. Love seeing it. BK is very good at what he does. Makes my job a lot easier. Sometimes he makes it a little harder, but he knows that. It's all in good fun. Most of the time. BK's the guy that told me I missed on Anthony Lynn. And I think, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he basically said he thinks it's Anthony Lynn if it's going to be a 49ers guy. I know Aaron Wilson today reported it doesn't have to be a 49ers guy. So we don't have to do that. We don't have to do the 49ers thing. Brian Johnson is that dude. Had to look him up after you talking about him already. Yeah, Brian Johnson's a fun name. Fun name to think about. Might be too sought after. But fun name. Fun name. What about Bryce because skinnier, weaker quarterbacks like Tua, Lamar, Kyler? You know what? Look, injury is a concern for all these guys. Bryce didn't get hurt in college. He played in the toughest, meanest conference in football, and he didn't get hurt in college. He missed one game. And if that was, if he had to play in that game in some way, shape, or form, maybe he could have given it a go. But he missed one game, so I'm not super worried about that. I'm interested to watch his weight at the combine, see if he beefed up. As Todd McShay saying he's going to get well over 200 pounds. Is that for the combine or is that to play with? Like, is he going to play at that weight? Joe, you can already feel the culture changing today. Certainly feels as fun as it's felt in a long time to be a Texans fan. I like Stroud because Young is smaller than Murray and our line isn't that great. Don't want him flattened every play this year. Fun fact, Eagles thought of to have the best offensive line in football. Okay? Texans gave up less sacks than the Eagles this year. Guess who got banged up at the end of the year? Jalen Hurts. This line is not that bad. It's not that good, but it's not that bad. You got the tackles that are good. Kenyon Green has got to get better at left guard. Can is fine at right guard. You got to get a regular center in there. You got to get a free agent center in there probably. And that interior will be a little bit better. Like Tyree Wilson, Nolan Smith. Tyree's going to be gone by 12, I would think. Nolan Smith, I saw him in a mock draft in the second round. I don't know. I feel like he's the type of guy that might test well and find himself in the back part of the first round. I don't know. I don't think any D end will be there at 12. It's either wide receiver, cornerback, or Bijan. Oh, you mean Black Christian McCaffrey? Because that's basically what Bijan is to me. Elite pass catcher, elite runner, incredible vision, tough as nails. I'm down for Bijan at 12. I know that Dameon Pierce is here, but imagine how stinking good the running back room would be if it's Bijan and Dameon Pierce, and you got those guys for the next 5-6 years. I'm down for Bijan at 12, man. That'll make your offense a lot better. Him and Dameon Pierce, come on. Man, that'd be fun. BK, if you want to, man, drop that link to that channel in here in the chat, man. The folks want to know where they can find you. Quentin Johnston at 12. Hey, TCU's Quentin Johnston. This wide receiver class is all over the place, man. It's pretty interesting to see the read on these guys. 5 went off the board before the Texans picked last year. And you got some people saying it may be 5-10 picks after the Texans make their second selection before the first guy comes off the board. I don't know if the talent's dropped off that much. There's a few more exciting players in sort of the front 7 linemen and stuff like that could push some wide receivers down. Obviously, 4 quarterbacks could maybe go high. That pushes some wide receivers down, but I don't know that they're going to fall as much as some of these folks imagine. Testing is going to be interesting with these guys. I mean, Jackson Smith and Jigba didn't play football this year. Quentin Johnston obviously was a freak. Jordan Addison from USC is smooth. God, he's jiffy smooth, man. He's choosy mom's chew smooth, peanut butter smooth, man. Man, he makes it look easy running those routes. He's a fun watch. The kid out of SMU, Rice, is an interesting name. Maybe a little bit later. No, he's at the Senior Bowl this week. Jalen Hyatt. Jalen Hyatt, I believe, is who I'm thinking of. The Tennessee wide receiver. This is your burner. This is your deep threat guy, Jalen Hyatt, the Tennessee wide receiver. So, my bet is Levis more durable than Bryce at 190. Yeah, I mean, he may not be at 190, though. And I would bet against Levis's durability. I just would. Todd McShay, this is one of those weird things that Todd McShay doesn't throw out for no reason. Todd McShay said Will Levis spends too much time in the gym. He said that there's almost a worry that he's too big and works out too much. And I wonder if there's a lot of gym muscles and not a lot of functional muscles, and that leads to a guy getting hurt a little bit more. Just something to think about. I'm not a doctor, okay? I certainly don't look like I work out a lot. I get in the gym every now and then. Texans Fit. If you want a reference code, I can get you one. I think we both get something free if you want a Texans Fit reference code. I go there. Go to the one in Meyerland. Yeah, Jordan Addison's a fun one, man. Fun watch at USC with Caleb Williams. Was really good at Pitt with Kenny Pickett. Really good at USC with Caleb Williams. You don't love to throw QB proof on a guy before he gets to the NFL, but maybe QB proof. Maybe. I mean, he played with 2 good college quarterbacks, so I just can't sit here and tell you he's damn QB proof. All right, you heard the national media said regarding the Ryans hiring when a few said they would stay away from the Houston job. Yeah, man, they got that wrong. Top coordinator candidate picked the Houston Texans twice over the Denver Broncos. Twice. I love that Ian Rappaport report. Now, I know Josina Anderson said it didn't happen, and Adam Schefter said it didn't happen. We'll get to the bottom of it with Mike Florio on the radio tomorrow. Mike Florio is going to join us, and he had a fun headline about the Texans, the dysfunctional Texans. Get DeMeco Ryans over the Broncos. Well, guess who's dysfunctional now, Mike Florio? We'll talk about that D word that Mike Florio said. Talk about that tomorrow. 5:30, ESPN 97.5, 92.5. Jake Asman, Brad Kellner, myself, Cody Stutes on ESPN 97.5, the ESPN 97.5 app, ESPN 97.5 on Twitch as well. Keely Ringo's clocked 23 miles per hour in college this year, the fastest year. The NFL's 22 miles per hour. Drafted him at cornerback and solidified best secondary in football. I don't like cornerback in the first round. Steven Nelson played well last year, and Derek Stingley's going to be – we haven't even talked about how fun Derek Stingley's going to be. You know, the defense Sauce Gardner got to play this year? That's the defense you would think Derek Stingley's going to get to play this year. Lock him up, one-on-one, man coverage. Go out there, beat that guy. Don't let him ruin our day. You know? Derek Stingley as quarterback 1 with Steven Nelson, that's fine. I don't want a quarterback in the first. Get some more guys. But I don't want a cornerback. Brian Johnson would be my pick for the offensive coordinator spot. Yeah, I would love Brian Johnson. High demand. And he's going to have a lot of options A lot of offers. I heard him connected to Saban at Alabama. So, a lot of options. If Bijan is at 12, we need it. Faster CMC. I love Bijan. I know running backs at the top of the draft don't always work out, but I'd take a swing for Bijan, man. He's Christian McCaffrey. He's Christian McCaffrey. You saw what McCaffrey did this week. You saw what he did for the 49ers. You know who else saw it? DeMeco. He had to defend him in practice. There's my other co-host, Jake Asman. Sage Rosenfeld's for OC or bust. Come on. Get out of here, Jake Asman. Sage ain't going to be the OC. Sage ain't going to be the OC. Get out of here. Juju Smith-Schuster in free agency. Nah. I don't like free agent wide receivers. Sure, spend a little bit of money on one. I don't like shopping at the top of free agent wide receivers. Plus, Mechie's hopefully going to be back. And if Mechie's back and he plays slot corner or slot wide receiver, you go Mechie at slot, Nico outside, some other guys to back up Nico, and then your other wide receiver draft pick outside. You're building something. Quentin Swift weighing in. At Jake, look who has arrived. Quentin Swift, if you listen to the radio show, Quentin is Sales Guy Q. If you want to advertise on the radio station, get with Quentin. Find a way to email him or message me on Twitter. I'll get you Quentin's information. You can advertise on the radio station if you are interested. Mr. D. Garcia, 22, has got a little mini mock draft here for us. Will Anderson Jr. at 2. Addison at 12. Kincaid/Sewell at 33. Caleb Williams, Addison, Burrow, Chase 2.0. You're not getting Caleb Williams. You're not finishing number 1. You're not getting the number 1 pick next year. I don't want that. I don't need that. You're not getting Caleb Williams next year. So go ahead and just get Bryce Young. You got a lesser version of Burrow, Chase 2.0, and Young and Mechie, and go to town that way. Or C.J. Stroud and Jackson Smith and Jigba. Something like that. Aki Dragon, Hooker around 2 or 3. Amani Hooker, the quarterback from Tennessee. I don't know that Hooker's going to play this year. Think about what he's got to do. He's got to get better from the torn ACL, and then he's got to learn how to operate in the NFL. I just don't know that Amani Hooker is going to be ready at all this year. I think some team's going to draft and stash him and just, kind of leave him back there. Leave him back there on the depth chart just hanging out and hope that in a couple of years he turns into something. I don't know that he's going to play much in 2023. So he can't be your option. He can't be your option there at quarterback. Migo's the guy that can bring in football people. That's also why I want Gary to have a role. Hannah, hope she doesn't call all the shots. Hannah helped put this damn thing together. So, keep having a say. Keep having a say. How is Young smaller than Kyler? I don't know. Kyler Murray looks like a very tiny child. Jordan Reed, who is a great draft fall and has been on the Wheelhouse before, he told a funny story about what a scout told him one time. And I love this about Kyler Murray, and I tell the story every time. Kyler Murray running with the football looks like a toddler who stole his parents' cell phone. Just the way he kind of – have you ever seen a toddler run away with a cell phone? That's what Kyler Murray looks like. I'm 10 minutes behind on comments. How do I get this far behind? 6-year deal is huge. Year 3, y'all will make the playoffs. Annoyed 49ers fan. Josh, welcome in, man. Appreciate you stopping by, commenting. You got plenty to like in 49er land. Let us have some fun. Year 3 would be great. Year 2 would be even more amazing. I'm not going to put expectations like that on DeMeco just yet, but year 2 would be awesome. Year 3, would be awesome. Bijan, Roshan Johnson, and Deuce Vaughn. Jim Leahy. He wants the Big 12 backfield, baby. I'd be fine with 2 out of those 3 guys. I don't care how you get them. I like Deuce Vaughn a lot. Kansas State running back. I like Deuce Vaughn. I mean, it's hard not to see Darren Sproles. That's what the comp's going to be. It should be. The guy's a freak athlete. Deuce is a very good player. BK can tell you. He watches Texas all the time. Quentin can tell you. My buddy Q can tell you. He watches Baylor all the time. I mean, Deuce Vaughn's destroyed Texas Tech a couple of times. So I like Deuce a lot. Bijan and Pierce sounds fun. Man, I tell you what. Wouldn't mind it. What about A-Chain? Hey, there's going to be some other running backs, man. If you don't want the running back in the first round, if you don't want the first round running back, there's going to be options there in the mid rounds, the second round. Roshan Johnson's going to be a mid round pick. Deuce is going to be a late pick. There's some other running backs, man. There's the kid out of Minnesota. I think he's in, right? There's a bunch of Big Ten backs in here. There's a bunch of Big Ten guys in there. I always feel pretty good about a Big Ten back. Yeah, kind of tough. This was the SMU player I mentioned earlier, Matthew Hunt, Rashee Rice. Interesting candidate. Man, what was I watching the other day? Pro Football Focus is build the perfect wide receiver from these draft picks that are coming up. And I believe Rice got catch radius or something like that. Like basically he invites press coverage and he beats it. Stuff like that. All right, let's see if I can catch up on the comments. Let's get to the top here. 2 years and Chip is not just a dream anymore. Let's swing for the fences with every pick and every dollar. Woo! We're talking championships? Let's just win the AFC South again. Okay? You think Brandon Cooks does a 360 on DeMeco? Say he doesn't want to be traded now? Hope not. See ya. I don't want Brandon Cooks on this team anymore, man. He quit on this team. He quit on this organization. I don't want Cooks on this team anymore. Curtis Podcast Network. Jalen Hyder, Cedric Tillman. Tennessee guys. Them UT fellas. Well, the other UT, depending on who you're talking to. UT guys. Yeah, Tillman's nice. Hyatt's a burner, man. Hyatt's going to be fast. Maybe one of the fastest wide receivers in this class. What up, Frank? Can't wait to see how DeMeco uses Petrie. Can't wait to see him tackle under Demetro. That's a combination of DeMeco and Petrie. Can't wait to see Petrie tackle well under DeMeco. That's what I'm excited about. I feel 5'10" is too short for a quarterback. Well, I hope he wears lifts in his shoes. Jahmyr Gibbs and Bijan gone in the first round. Probably. Yeah, Jahmyr is a tough one. Started out real hot, but I don't know. Maybe a top of the second guy. Maybe not a late first round. What's the best use of the cap space? Defense, offense? I like front seven players. The guys in the Wheelhouse have heard me say this a lot. I like front seven players. I trust guys like front seven guys more to pay off in free agency. Look at what the Eagles got going on in their front seven. They got two free agent signings that were not super, super expensive when they signed them. Javon Hargrave and Hassan Reddick. And both those guys were free agents that they helped round out the front seven. Go get some front seven guys is what I would do. That's what I would do with some of the money and a free agent center. I don't know who the free agent centers are. We'll dive into that over the course of the offseason. We'll have sort of off-season fun, position previews and all that kind of stuff. But I like spending money on front seven players. I don't like spending money on corners in free agency. I don't like spending money on wide receivers in free agency. I actually would be fine with a free agent running back to go with Dameon Pierce. There's a lot of really good ones. Tony Pollard would have been nice, but he's going to be expensive even with the injury. So we'll see. I don't trust running backs, but I'd be fine spending a few bucks on a running back this year. And, kind of a similar question. Also, Cooks is yelly belly, screw him. So, yeah, I'd look for inside linebackers, edge rushers, if there's a guy that you really like, an interior rusher to pair with Malik Collins, and a center. That'd be at the top of my wish list from spending the free agency money. Nah, Curtis, don't start this. I don't want Tennessee fans and Texans fans, fighting each other. Opinion on the Trey Lance conversation. A variety of reasons why I don't believe this is going to happen. One, if the 49ers would trade him and they know offense, why would you want him? 2, Trey Lance gets hurt. He was hurt his rookie year, which kept him from taking the job from Garoppolo at different points. I know he played a little bit, but he was hurt. He hurt his hand earlier in the year, and he just never got healthy. Never totally healthy, and then he got hurt again this year. So Trey Lance gets hurt. 3, if the 49ers miss on Brady or one of these free agent quarterbacks, they're going to need Lance and Purdy to fight each other to the death, football death, to see who the quarterback is. So I don't know that Trey Lance is going to be easy to get, and I don't know that I really want Trey Lance either. This is going to be a popular thing to say. I don't want to put this expectation on Christian Harris, but if I could say simply the best version of Christian Harris, that I'll take that. They're not getting Jimmy Garoppolo. I hope they're not. I don't want them to. I don't want them to spend money on a free agent quarterback. That's not what I really want them to do. Garoppolo's going to be expensive. He's going to have a lot of suitors. He would go somewhere where he can win right away. Plus, he gets hurt a lot. Jimmy G gets hurt a lot. Also, it didn't sit right with me, Jimmy Garoppolo, on the sidelines laughing in the middle of that 49ers game when they were getting smoked by the Eagles. Also, from what I understand from the San Francisco people, George Kittle hates Jimmy Garoppolo. And if George Kittle ain't rocking with you, do I want to rock with you? Yeah. Good QB, bad investment. Yeah, Frank, that's a good way to put it. What free agents the Texans specifically get? I'll take Hargrave. He's going to be one of the most expensive players in free agency, but that'd be a way to splash. That'd be a way to improve that defense. Javon Hargrave's a fun player. I'd take Hargrave. Should be a really good player. Again, I think he's the number 1 defensive player in ESPN's defensive player rankings for free agents. He'll be 30 years old. 11 sacks, missed a year because of injury. 23 sacks in 3 years. I mean, him and Malik Collins would be the most fearsome interior pass rush duo in football. He was number 1 in pass rush win rate for interior defensive linemen. Kansas City's Chris Jones was number 2, and Malik Collins from Houston was number 3. That'd be sick putting those two together. That'd be sick. Don't really need a corner in free agency, so stay away from that. Tight ends. Tight ends. I want Mike Gesicki. I want Dolphins tight end Mike Gesicki. Might be expensive. Primarily a pass catcher, doesn't do all that fancy blocking stuff that some tight ends do. But I want Gesicki. That's who I really want. Is Mike Gesicki. Murray. Matty McDougal. That's not a Scottish accent. I'm not trying to do a Scottish accent, but every time I hear Murray, I say it that funny way. You're international. Dialing in from Scotland. Murray. Howdy. Thanks for tuning in, man. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We got over 250 people in here, man, talking some Texans football, some Texans offseason, DeMeco Day. Look how excited we are. Were y'all ever excited for the offseason in the past couple of years? Hell no, man. Hell no. Murray asks, you want a bridge quarterback? Now, I want to get started on the rookie. I mean, even if they like a rookie that I don't, I want to get started on the rookie, start finding out about that. Somebody started mentioning free agent inside linebackers. Here we are. Edmonds, David, and Walker. Tremaine Edmonds from the Buffalo Bills. That's going to be pricey, man, especially with Roquan Smith knocking that money up. Levante David's expensive too. He's a little bit older, but I'd have a conversation with him. Older than some of these other guys, but I'd think about it. I certainly would. David Long Jr. from the Titans is the 31st ranked free agent according to ESPN. Sure. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I know a whole lot about these inside linebackers right now. I'll do a lot more research as we get closer. We still got to fill out the DeMeco staff and stuff like that, finish the Super Bowl. There'll be some free agency stuff for us a little bit later on. I don't want to draft a center. I would rather sign one in free agency and then draft a late round center that grows into that starting spot. That's what I would prefer to do. I don't want to spend an early pick on a center. I would have liked Linderbaum last year. We talked to him on the show at the Rotary Lombardi Awards. High level guy. I mean, you saw. I mean, the Ravens picked him, and like he almost made the Pro Bowl this year. Linderbaum's a freak. There's no Linderbaum this year, unfortunately. I do wonder if the Texans would have drafted Creed Humphrey, who's the center for the Chiefs a couple of years ago. He never got to them. DeMeco's free agents. So guys that he coached that are free agents. Jimmy Ward is a fascinating one. I would think Jimmy Ward's going to be pretty expensive. I think the Texans like their safeties from a starting standpoint. Petrie and Owens. You could get better than Owens, and Petrie's going to play a lot, but I don't think they're going to spend a bunch of money on a safety. I could be surprised, though. The defensive secondary is something that you can for sure, absolutely, without question, say improved from year to year. The defensive secondary was much better. Thanks for the Texas Talk late on this great day. Joe, thank you for the comment. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you for all the subscriptions below, the thumbs up below. It makes this channel easier to find for people like our friends in Scotland, like our friends in Monterrey, Mexico. And we want to have a bunch of people in here having fun all the time, man. Trey Lance is Ben Simmons. No, Ben Simmons doesn't even love basketball. Trey Lance loves football. Where do you see Christian Harris in these next couple of years? I wonder if Christian Harris is best suited as the second best linebacker on your team. Like, I wonder if you have a not great linebacking core, if he's the best. But if he's the second best linebacker and there's someone that's way better than him, you might have a really good core. The linebackers are going to have a field day with DeMeco in here, man. That's going to be really fun. Really fun for them. All right, am I behind on comments? I'm only 5 minutes behind. Tremaine Edmonds, going to be expensive. Worth checking in. Going to be expensive. Johnston is D-Hop 2.0. Let's, lofty comparison. Let's hold off on it. Trade down with Vegas for Derek Carr, stash Hooker in the later rounds. No, don't want it. Carr doesn't want that. He has a no-trade clause. He's expensive. He wants to play winning football. And I don't know that I want the long-term plan to be a mid-round quarterback. I mean, Hooker's going to lose a year. He's already older. I just don't want the plan to be a mid-round quarterback. I do not believe this will happen. I'd frickin' lose my mind if it did. That'd be awesome, though. I don't believe this is going to happen. How long is the Astros window? Another 10 years. Dana Brown is going to be awesome for this franchise. They got a lot of really good players. Crane's going to spend money, and Dana Brown's going to find some more. So, thank you for the Astros question. We don't talk a ton of Astros on here, but we have some fun here. Nico Collins is going to be the second wide receiver. I just don't know if he's good enough to be a wide receiver too. He might need to be a rotational guy. I'd draft 2 wide receivers. You got 12 picks. I'd draft 2 wide receivers. I would draft a guy in the first 2 rounds, and then I'd draft a guy like in the 4th, 5th, 6th round. And, think about what you really need from a wide receiver standpoint. You need 4 guys who are good. So if you have first round, second round guy, Nico, Mechie, and then the other guy who's kind of the late round guy, and Chris Moore, like you can make that work for a year. You can make that work. I think about a guy like Donovan Peoples-Jones, who was like a 5th round pick, who's a nice player. Like I got close to 1,000 yards this year. So I think about, guys like that, like mid to late round picks that turn into nice players. Took DPJ a little while, but it's a fun one. Hey, I'm a Bears fan. LOL. Hey, Coda. Enjoy the number 1 overall pick. Damn it. Love the content, Stutzy. Thank you, Terry. Thank you. Thank you for the kind words. Again, thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We're talking Texans. I'm so pumped to be a Texas fan right now. Man, like Frank said, and like we've talked about here today, when was the last time the offseason really felt fun? They haven't even done any of the things about the roster yet. Like we got We got the draft coming up. They got 2 first-round picks. They got a bunch of other picks. I think they have 5 in the top 74 picks. They got a bunch of money in free agency. Like, DeMeco hadn't even put a staff together yet. Like, we're having a blast here, man. Having a blast. Jeffrey, who do you want at center? Good question that I don't know the answer to at this very moment. I'm looking to see if there's a center on ESPN's list. If Ben Jones gets cut by the Titans, I want Ben Jones to come back. Probably not as good as he was here in the years for the Titans, but I want Ben Jones to come back if he gets cut by the Tennessee Titans. They never should have let him leave. Okay, they never should have let him leave. The guy was really good here. He turned into a really great player for the Titans, and the injuries have caught up to him a little bit. But all right, here's some center names: Rodney Hudson, Connor McGovern, Jason Kelsey's not leaving Philadelphia, so we can put that out of our minds. Garrett Bradbury, the Minnesota center, maybe. The Bradley Bozeman, the center from Carolina, maybe. That was a guy I wanted the Texans to draft a couple years ago, I think. Nick Martin's a free agent. If anybody'd like to relive the horribleness of Nick Martin, I don't. Maybe he can go play in New England with his buddy Bill O'Brien. Jim talked about Creed Humphrey. Creed Humphrey was, I thought he was going to be a no-doubter. Ended up in the second round. Of course, the Kansas City Chiefs have him. They're stuck with him for the next decade plus. Been awesome. Jonathan Owens, come on, man. Yeah, you're right. BK calls him Jonathan Biles. I probably should have said his name right. He's probably better as depth. I just don't know if they're going to replace him with a veteran. Maybe that's a rookie that they would bring in. Any hope for Garrett Wallow? Hey, well, if he's got something left, DeMeco will get it out of him. Perez, keep up the great work. Cody, you and Landry taking over YouTube Texans block so far. Thank you, man. Subscribe to Landry Locker. Subscribe to Jake Asman, my co-host on the Wheelhouse. Subscribe to BK Brad Kellner, my co-host on the Wheelhouse. Man, we have some fun here. Texans Cap does a really good job here. Cap and Trade, I think is his name on here. Texans Cap does a good job breaking down contract stuff. We'll have him on to get into the intricacies of those contracts and stuff like that. Texas transplant in Oregon now. Ted, thanks for weighing in here. It's not even late. Ted's not even getting ready for bed yet. I mean, we're almost here at midnight, and Ted's over here. It's like, it's 9:48. Love the DeMeco hire. I'm fine with Jalen Carter at 2. Fight me. I'm not fighting you, Ted. Although I would like to see what Oregon has to offer. I don't want a defensive player at 2. I want one of the top 2 quarterbacks. I want C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young. Will that change for me? No. Could I expand my horizons at quarterback? Yes. Is it likely? No. We need a tight end, wide receiver, but also a defensive end. Yeah, well, a lot of people need those defensive ends, man. You want a defensive end? About to be expensive. Okay? And there's really not a lot of great names. There's really not. Maybe a guy like Clee Farrell, and you think he can turn into something. Maybe Yannick Ngakoue, but he's been so inconsistent the past couple of years. I don't know. Honest thoughts on Mechie. How's he going to do? I believed, and I know BK thought this, that Mechie was going to be the second best wide receiver on this team this year. I don't know what the year away from football does to him. I don't know how the body coming back works. But it's a guy that I'm really excited to watch play for a multitude of reasons. The fact that he'd be back on the field having defeated cancer, incredible. But I very much believe in John Mechie. I believe so much in John Mechie that if he was healthy in the national championship last year, I believe Alabama wins and not Georgia. So Lamar, do we consider it expensive? No, I don't believe he's leaving Baltimore, and if he does, he's leaving for a ton of money and draft picks. I'd rather keep the draft picks. Big O. Now you're saying, why do they call him Darnell Washington Big O? Big O, it's because he wears 0. Darnell Washington is a really fun prospect in this year's draft. I've seen him going in the late first round. I've seen him going in the third round in mock drafts and in expectations of where he goes. The receiving stats will not blow you away. He has 3 receiving touchdowns and about 700 yards, 600 yards receiving. But he is a freak athlete. He is 6'7", 270. Will be interesting to watch Darnell Washington. I think he's probably going to test really well at the combine. Address the wide receiver room if Mechie isn't ready. Yeah, I mean, they'll have an idea, I would think. You think DeMeco Ryans will want at the 12th spot? I'm thinking Brian Brzee, if he's available, or a receiver. Brzee's interesting. Defensive tackle. You could put him next to Malik Collins. Rushed the passer pretty well at Clemson. Consistent when he was playing. Had a little bit of an injury history, but I think he's doing good now. Unfortunately, had a family tragedy at one point where his little sister passed away. But that team rallied around him. Loved that guy. Clemson, wrapped their arms around him, and that's a guy that's really interesting. Been going in the top 15, 20 in a lot of mock drafts, and then Kuiper didn't even have him in the first round. So Brzee's a hard guy to get a read on. I believe Dane Brugler mocked him to the Texans in Brugler's first mock draft, but Brugler's he's not super accurate. He's really good at breakdowns. He's just not accurate on the mocks. He's not leaving the Eagles. I think he's going to retire, actually. If they win the Super Bowl, I bet he retires. DeMeco's going to be the boss. Yep. Coaching staff going to start getting filled out. Yep. Ben Jones, come on. Yeah, not Nick Martin. No, thank you. Yes, Isaiah, they can get Josh Jacobs. That'd be an interesting name. That'd be a guy I'd think about. Had a great year this year without a really good offensive line. So I'd think about Josh Jacobs. Expensive. Y'all like the hire? Nah, we don't like the hire. We love the hire here in Houston. We love the hire. Don't do 2 running backs that need to do the same thing. I mean, I asked Philadelphia about that. They got 3 running backs to do the same thing. It looks pretty good to me. Quinn disappointed in Philadelphia when they traded for him. It was really weird. He had a huge year for the Bears last year and then kind of was meh this year in a free agent year. So I don't know. I'd say no. 13.5. Maybe not going to be that many. I don't know. I don't know the exact number of Texans that'll be at the Thursday 3:59 p.m. Press conference. Probably the only Houston Texans fan in the state of South Dakota. You might be. What's up, South Dakota? What's up, South Dakota? What's up, Sean? Appreciate you tuning in. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Stutz, definitely a Hispanic last name. We'll call him El Oso Blanco. Fun fact, when I was a little leaguer, my little league coach called me Bear. And to this day, I'm friends with him because I'm still friends with his son. My buddy's grandmother, my coach's dad, his mom, or my coach, their mom, their grandma still calls me Oso to this day. So that was a little league nickname, so that's funny. Clowney's a free agent. Yeah. No thanks. Pass rush in there. Stops the run, but pass rush in there. Think a minute who wants to come back now? Probably not. Probably don't like the Texans and got a little off the field issue might be dealing with. Quintiriano, or as BK calls him on the show, Tegan Quentin Tarantino. Quinturiano came on late at the end of the year last year. It was a fun watch. The other Oregon, the Oregon State tight end, Musgrave, Lance Zierlein was tweeting about him, and he's apparently been impressing at the Senior Bowl. So Musgrave's a name. There's a lot of tight ends in this draft. Washington, Musgrave, Kincaid from Utah, Michael Mayer, the Notre Dame tight end. So there's a lot. Kirksey. I don't want to single him out, just Kirksey, but Kirksey. Rex Burkhead, don't bring him back. Don't bring him back. Bobby Petrino for OC. Nice try, A&M fan, trying to get Bobby Petrino away from there. Nice try. Houston about to be a no-fly zone. Wouldn't that be nice? An actual one. Not like when Brandon Harris would do it after a guy, dropped the ball and he had nothing to do with it. Low, Julio. Low, I would say. I don't think either guy's going to coach. Be around the organization? Yeah. Certainly. Separate topic. Why are you and Landry bashing Mikey all the time? Show the guy some love. Mike Meltzer's one of the smartest football minds I know. He's one of the smartest human beings I know. Mike just says some crazy stuff sometimes. Final take from me. Thanks for the shout out for the international fans. Appreciate your content, your acknowledgeable takes. Damn good insight. Only way is up now. For me or the Texans? Because I know we're talking about the Texans going up too. Okay. I know we're going. Murray, thank you for tuning in, man. I hope you can get over for a game someday if you've never been to a game. We had a Canadian listener that was going to have his graduation gift be coming to a Texans game. I don't think he did that this year. I'm glad he didn't. This would have been a bad year to do it. Hopefully next year. All right, we're coming up on 90 minutes here. Last call for alcohol. Here. What's your last little bits? Staff at Senior Bowl this week. Bunch of scouts. John Harris is there. If you don't know who John Harris is, I worked with John. I can't say worked because I was an intern. I interned for John Harris way back in the day when he hosted a radio show on 1560 The Game called The Sean and John Show with Sean Pendergast. John Harris is my favorite human being to talk draft with because he is an encyclopedic knowledge. He is a must-follow on Twitter, J Harris Football. He puts a lot of his content on HoustonTexans.com, and then he has his other website, FootballTakeover.com. John Harris is a must-follow. He is in Mobile for some media perspective on that. No, not the wild card, but sure, that'd be fun. We're not bashing Florio tomorrow, but we'll get some answers for the dysfunctional headline. Okay. I like Porter Jr. the most, but I wouldn't draft him if I was the Texans. What if we draft Levis at 2? I throw up. Frank, I'm already drunk. Well, be safe, Frank. Be safe. Christian Harrison Petrie, hopefully they choose a good nickel cornerback, good coach to help coach them. I don't know. But Christian Harris, Jalen Petrie, and Derek Stingley are going to be fun watches with DeMeco Ryans. Fun watches. John knows his shit. Great scout. Harris is awesome. He is a great human being as well. I love John Harris. Costa Rica. All right, so we got Mexico, Scotland, Costa Rica, and South Dakota, or maybe it was North Dakota. Might as well be its own state. So I joke. I kid. Tad remembers double rods. What did we used to do back in the day? Used to do the double rods. Yeah, the double rods. There's still some 1560 folk hanging around there. When will Foster get in the Ring of Honor? I'd put him in. Certainly put him in. I'd put him. I'd put JJ. And I'd put Jonathan Joseph, but I'd wait a little while. Quick mock for you. 2, 12, and 33. Bryce Young. Brian Brzee. And Drew Sanders, the linebacker from Arkansas. This denotes the front office because his points He's always on point every year. I don't know, but there ain't many people in this world that dislike John Harris. And if they dislike John Harris, they better have a damn good reason. He must have cut him off in traffic or something. That guy's fun. One of the most passionate people I've ever met about college football. And great guy. Follow John Harris. All right, folks. 90 minutes. If you just got in late, the replay is going to be fun. We got plenty of stuff at the beginning. We had over 250, 260 people in here. That's awesome that y'all want to come watch, interact, talk in the chat. We have the makings of an extremely fun Texans offseason ahead of us. We have the makings of an extremely fun place to talk about that Texans offseason and eventually that Texans team right here on this channel. Thumbs up down below, subscribes down below. I appreciate all those. I appreciate every single one of you that takes the time to watch this for 5 minutes, for 50 minutes or more. Every comment, I wish I could read every single one of these. You guys make this so much fun. We have so much fun here. We're going to get some fun stuff going on the channel. We're going to do some 97.5 giveaway stuff. We're going to do some other giveaway stuff. We're going to have a very fun offseason of Texans football. We're going to do it right here on the YouTube. All right, let's see if I can remember the catchphrase to finish it up here for everybody. Eat good, sleep good, be good. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you, everybody.